Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. We're very excited and proud to introduce Mr. Bill McKinney as our presenter today. Mr. McKinney is the recipient of the 2018 SCPGA Teacher of the Year Award. He's also been the recipient of the Section's Horton Smith Award in 2015. He's a 25-year member of the PGA. He teaches out of Marbella Country Club and Shady Candy Country Club in South Orange County. He's also been the chair for the teaching committee for the section 2014 through 2017. Good morning, Bill. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series.
Good morning, John. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's my privilege to be here with you today. I'm really happy and excited to do this, and I hope everyone gleans a little something from it. Today's little show is going to be about attitude, intrinsic motivation, implicit instruction, and some self-searching. You know, I was just named the SCPGA Teacher of the Year, which was incredibly exciting for me. And, you know, it's not like something I had to get or something, but I kept thinking, what do I have to do to get that thing? And I kept every year thinking about what would I do. Like last year, Bob Mattson, of course, a very renowned teacher. I thought, how can I ever match up to someone like that, or a Jamie Mulligan, or any, you know, Brady Riggs, etc. And anyway, so I always do this soul searching or self-searching, and I guess we always have to do that. So anyway, what kind of teacher are you anyway? Was what I came up with as a title. Know thyself, or maybe we really shouldn't. Staying out of the old pigeonhole. That's me over at Shady Canyon there. Great place if you ever get a chance to hang out there. I highly recommend it. Know thyself is that classic philosophy. It's sort of a granddaddy philosophy. And really, can we know ourselves if we're always changing, or if we're maybe, I don't want to say multiple personalities, but you may have a lot of different attitudes you use throughout a given phase of your life or even a day. I hope everyone here is familiar with Carol Dweck's work and mindset. If you're not, I highly recommend, even if you're not a reader, you could go on YouTube and watch some of the presentations, and there's tons of them, and because it's so important. It's really, again, about attitude of all kinds of things, and I happen to write down over here self-trust, goal setting, patience, courage, focus, positivity, learning. And all of that can radically change whether you're successful or not. And again, I'm such a golf geek that my head was all, I've got around 400 golf books I can see in my living, well, not in my living room, but my wife made me put them out in the garage, but I've got maybe 150 of them I can see here. Anyway, I'm always learning. I always try to keep learning. The best teachers I know are always learning. And that's my mindset, just keep learning especially. And I've always been curious about the teachers who think, oh, I'm just going to keep it simple, and I've got my one way of doing it, and it works for, you know, I imagine they think it works for everyone. But I suppose if you're listening to this webinar today, that you're thinking you've got something to learn still too, so I applaud you for that. So am I a golfing machine, stack and tilt, MORAD, impact zone, the mental game? Am I a consultant, statistics, TrackMan coach, Vision 54? Am I on course, biomechanics, focus band, on and on? I'm all of those things. I've spent time with Mac O'Grady. I do impact zone schools with Bobby Clampett. I'm super curious about the mental game. I would call myself friends with Chris Como, who called himself a consultant for Tiger Woods, and that seems to have worked pretty recently. I guess we can all agree. I love statistics. I love the every shot counts and strokes gained and all that stuff. And there are other statistics programs too. I highly recommend, if you're a teacher, to pay a little attention to that, because statistics can really direct your behavior and the behavior of your students. I've been to a few seminars with Vision 54 with Pia and Lynn Nielsen, Pia Nielsen and Lynn Marriott. That's great if you ever get a chance to be exposed to them. I can't recommend that highly enough. About speaking of attitude and mindset, that is so powerful. I use a TrackMan for my teaching. After 3 or 4 years as the chairman of the teaching committee, and if you've seen me ever present, the few years before that I was presenting at quite a few, And I was always, it was like show and tell for all my toys that I was trying at the time, and I always had fun doing that. And I still love trying out new toys, but at the end, what it came down to for me was the TrackMan became the most useful tool I could use in my teaching, as far as, you know, stepping up my game about being a better teacher and offering my students the best, the best quality, you know, best value for their money, I should say. Biomechanics, there are the big boys in science have come out to play. Biomechanics, and there's some engineers out there too. And if anyone's on the Facebook groups, there's all kinds of them. The golf biomechanists, the golf teaching professionals. If you're not a big Facebooker, even for the information, the free exchange of ideas, I highly recommend paying some attention to that, because it might enhance what you know about teaching. Oh, and by the way, all this stuff, there's someone out there, especially with how easy it is to get information on the old interwebs, that you might come up with a student who knows all this stuff, or they might know. So you've got to be a little bit literate, or, you know, somewhat fluent in every angle, I think. You know, have a little idea about the golfing machine or stack and tilt, because it's right for someone some of the time, and it might be right for someone all the time. Or it might be, you know, I sort of count like Jimmy, if anyone knows what Jimmy Ballard, it was sort of a fair amount of, let's call it lateral motion, which is anathema to the stack and tilt program or system. But you know what? Some people played really well. We remember Hal Sutton or Curtis Strange or Rocco Mead. There's some great players that play with, you know, more lateral motion than that. And I've got some slides coming up pretty soon about various teaching methods. I like my fun transitions you saw there. Pedagogy, that's just sort of the science of learning and teaching. And I show a picture here of one of my students with, I wouldn't call that great posture. And she's a good golfer, and she's about 15 years old. She's just not yet strong enough, I reckon, to keep her posture. So I was asking myself, what does this student need to learn? Can I provide them an opportunity to learn it without me directly instructing it? You know, and I try to help them learn what they need to know. So by that, I mean, what does this person here need to do? What is she doing that? Something happened before this phase that caused that. Now, I've tried the chair behind, I put the, you know, something in front of her. We're getting there. We're just little by little, starting with short shots. And again, the implicit instruction is, I always try to use a ball flight, see if that can fix posture. I try to fix, you know, not just, hey, here, you're doing this wrong. In fact, at this phase of our coaching sessions, I don't show her this much because she really hates it, and it bothers her, and it makes her be less confident about her play when she's a 70 shooter at age 15. And just some kids are going to look like that. This girl crushes a ball. She already has above average LPGA tour speed. It's always been my point to be very careful with students, young students who have a little bit of peculiarity in their swings, to make sure you don't ruin that, because there are some successful golfers with that as well. Intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Why the carrot and the stick are both bad, and what's the alternative? Oh, the alternative is implicit. You know, this intrinsic. I'm sorry. The carrot and the stick are both, you know, oh, I'm going to get a trophy, or I'm going to get a spanking, or whatever. Something that the carrot is what you're chasing after. The stick is what you hope doesn't catch you. And that, neither of those are good long-term solutions for motivation. Intrinsic is more like helping a student connect with these other values of the goal, or of the skill acquisition. And that's a huge, let's see what my next one says here. Yeah, here we go. Intrinsic motivation. Provide occasions to connect with why. And also by that, I mean, what's in it for you? I just happened to be going through this morning and wrote chores, for example. Let's say you've got kids at home, teenagers or whatever, and you go, hey, I'm going to give you, you know, $5 for taking out your trash. So let's use a different one. Let's say you're going to get $100 for every A you get in class. What ends up happening there, according to this, the new science, pedagogy, is that the kids sort of take the information in the class as just a hoop they've got to jump through to get to the $100. Now, instead of that, they should be thinking about connecting with, now, you know, you might get it. Why is geometry important for me? I'm never going to use that in my life. And as a parent, I'll use myself as an example, I'll say, well, look, this teaches you how to think. You live, there's geometry all around us, and it's a stepping stone to maybe higher math that you may one day connect with. And it's just a challenge for your brain. It makes your brain stronger. So think of it like a gym. So I try to come up with as many positive motivations, positive reasons, and what's in it for them. Why? Why should I learn this? And that's what I do that with golf too, and try to explain to kids, try to share all the other aspects of then, oh, you'll get a trophy, or constantly having contests and there's got to be a winner and a loser, instead of just playing for fun and the joy of playing. We still do our contests too, of course, naturally. So express your love of the game, help them understand that. The social aspects, I mean, my son is only 2.5 years old, but I just can't wait to play golf with the little bugger one of these days, and I hope it's pretty soon. But just the fact, I know that this was very important for me and my family. My father and grandfather was getting out on the course, and just, we didn't gamble together, but just being out there with them created such a better bond in our family. The spiritual aspects is just sort of being out in nature, looking at the trees, and pardon me, however else you see that, as far as, there could be religious aspects. I find God out of doors, or however you want to feel about that. There is a nice spiritual aspect to the game of golf. And just the benefits of learning something challenging. It's good for you. Golf is, as we all know, incredibly hard, and it's good for your brain and your body to conquer these things, or at least do your best. The high-end eye-hand coordination, body movement, balance, all the traits that golf teaches, much less the rules, the etiquette, and just all the character that golf helps develop. So not just, oh, you can win a trophy, or how about, I'm sure everyone here has kids that, oh, the parents drop her off, we want to get a scholarship. And I'm thinking, man, you're playing golf for a scholarship, and you can tell those kids just do not have the joy behind those eyes about the game. It's too rare that we're getting that. And so as a coach, I try to help as many people understand what's in it for them outside of just getting the trophy, getting the scholarship, getting the prize, all that. So it's connecting with the intrinsic. There's a lot of information out there about that. If you're watching this on your phone, feel free to take some screenshots so you can look it up later. That's what I always do when I listen to my webinars. Boy, how great was last ones with Allison. I hope everyone listened to. That was just terrific about the brain and post-traumatic stress disorder, and I think we all have it a little bit, and how you cope with it. That was just awesome. Here's our next one. And now some nonsense that's bad for us. It's kind of a funny frame. We all know this. Keep your head still and don't move off the ball, and other myths. We've all gone through this, and I've just kind of grabbed a few of them. Let's take a look at this. This is Mr. Hogan, and that was a silhouette that Brian Manzello, my friend, drew around these pictures. We've all seen those. If you're using the YouTube, you can find all this. I've probably seen every video with Ben Hogan in it. And Ben Hogan moved his head. Jack Nicklaus didn't move it as much, but you can see there in the space of his shoulder that he definitely moved more off the ball than, and see this quote unquote spine angle. It's not exactly directly straight up and down. It's off to the side a little bit. There's some lateral motion there. Here's Lord Byron, big old move off the ball. And again, my point with this isn't so much, oh, you have to move off the ball, but by the way, it's not bad if someone does move off the ball. There's a very awesome player, super Hall of Famer, who moved quite a bit off the ball. Little movement freedom isn't necessarily a bad thing. So, and staying over it can be good too. Modern players too, that might go, those are the old timers, the equipment was different. By the way, speaking of the old equipment, we get this a lot, and I don't know if any of you have ever handled the old classic hickories, but they were actually very stiff. I got to handle Bobby Jones's clubs that he won that stuff with at Augusta, and they were very stiff. Those weren't the ones he won as the 1930 with, but there were another set that Bobby Jones had, and they were incredibly stiff. Anyway, there's DJ. Naturally, he moves too. Most everyone moves some. So it's just something to think about, that if we're the structure and stability police all the time, we've got to help people sometimes free up a little bit. Boy, look at that turn. More maxims. So that straight left arm at impact, except for all these US Open champions. Look at these beautiful, this is a beautiful collage that was put together by a guy named Jeff Martin. And all these are US Open champions. There's up there, there's Lexi, that's Byron, there's Amy Alcott. I'm not exactly sure who the upper right one is. Retief, Arnie, Babe Zaharias. I think that's Jordan Spieth that's cut off the screen. We know his arm's bent, etc. They're not the only ones, but a whole bunch of players. And I used to have that when I was in high school and college, and I just hated it. I'd see it on, right when video cameras started coming on, I'd see that and I'd go, oh. And I looked a little like maybe, whatever, like Retief, let's call it. And I thought, that is terrible. I've got to look like that straight arm, like Ben Hogan. And, you know, I can't hit golf balls. Meanwhile, I hit a lot of fairways and a lot of greens with that bent arm, and tried my guts out to straighten it at probably the expense of a couple things. I think the advantage of this could be that it shallows your angle of attack and gets that more, let's call it bacon strip divots, if you happen to catch my Facebook post recently. But anyway, about thinner divots, about a shallower and a little more level through the ball, maybe, you know, and perhaps it's even, I don't want to say more structurally sound. Maybe it absorbs the shock more, and maybe it doesn't hurt your shoulder more. I don't know exactly what it does, frankly, but all I know is all these really good players. Look at Brooks Koepka down there. The big guns. Anyway, the soft left arm isn't necessarily a bad thing. Just that's one of the things that I've stopped trying to get people to do, is that left arm's got to be structural. Maybe everyone here is doing this. This is kind of a funny picture. This is one of my students over at Shady. He's just a, you know, guy in his late 20s, and I didn't tell him to do that. I was telling him to keep his right hip high through the ball instead of tilting back, the whole posterior pelvic tilt. And anyway, that's what he came up with by trying to keep his right hip high. And if anyone here is as big a golf nut as me, anyway, you know that there's a whole cottage industry out there of guys that are posing this, and you see it, and you know, and more power to them for creating that. If you see someone doing this on the driving range, you know who their teacher is, or one of maybe 2 or 3 fellows out there that are teaching this. And again, and this guy showed up, he was more standard than this, and next thing you know, hey, let's try to keep your right hip high, which you can see it is a little high there, and he is starting down. He's a pretty good golfer, but he's not great. He's maybe a 9 or 10 handicap, but it didn't help him hit the ball better. Just sort of an experiment. Just thought it was kind of a funny one. Not everyone needs to squat in transition, and most good players do not squat in transition. This is a cool little picture. This is the son of the GM of the Lakers, who's one of my students over at Shady, Rob Pelinka's son, Durham. And he's one of very few players that I've ever seen with maybe too much forward lean and too much bowed wrist. And he hits he's sort of a new golfer. He can hit it okay. They're very low, and I think kids might do this. And this is sort of a little bit of a nod to my teacher, my longtime teacher, Greg McCatton, who said he's hardly ever seen anyone his whole life do this, and we probably haven't either. But it is, in my opinion, he was hitting maybe a 5-wood there. Could hardly, they were just low bullets 5 feet off the ground. So there's someone I had to actually teach to quote unquote flip it, to release it more. And he did it a little better. I don't know that I have the after picture in this sequence. But that, you know, if you're always teaching everyone straight left arm and lean it as much as possible, it's probably good for some people, but you know, I didn't teach him that, and that's what he showed up with, and so it happens. This is one of the better players in the, what do they call it, not a para, I forget what they call that, amputee golfer, and he's an excellent golfer. You must shift your weight to the left side, of course, as you can see here. And some of you by this point would know that I'm affiliated with a fellow named Art Maffei, who's the rocket scientist, and he's also the sections. I sort of helped implement him as the sections golf science consultant. And some of what he's come up with is maybe this jumping into the left side is actually counterproductive, and most players might do better to transition without jumping on the left side. And this fellow, you know, obviously has no other choice and hits a really nice ball. That's a pretty cool picture, I thought. And so you don't have to shift to your left side, obviously, to be a pretty good golfer. And I'm not saying everyone should hang back, but, you know, don't hang your hat only on you've got to jump to your left side, Mrs. Havikamp or whoever. You just never know how good someone might turn out with more of a centered pivot, or even from hitting a little bit from a back foot, as this guy proves. Pretty cool. Keep your back straight, Tommy Fleetwood. So this is another picture I enjoy. And, you know, you can see there up top, where top of his shoulder is almost vertical straight down over the ball. I sort of like that look myself. Again, I think there was a phase, and maybe it was brought on by Tiger, who had a little bit straighter back, and Adam Scott, you know, obviously two really great golf swings. And that ramrod straight back, and I think a lot of us have, you know, what do they call it? Grip, alignment, stance, and posture. And we, you know, put the club behind our back and the one at the top, and you try to help people really hold straight. And I don't know, that's not, you know, here's old Sam Snead, and he certainly didn't have that. He was more one of the all-time classic swings. And old Sam had a very comfortable look over it, similar to Tommy Fleetwood there. At address, looked very relaxed and poised over it, and not too structured ramrod straight. That's certainly not the case. Ryder Cup this week, everyone. Here's old Paul Casey. We're going to be sending that bowed back and the head down. And for goodness sakes, Paul, keep your back straight. I joke. And anyway, this is what a lot of good players look like at Impact. And I hope everyone has a good time watching the Ryder Cup and your favorite team wins. Probably everyone here will be shooting for Team America, and go Team America, but may the best team win. It's going to be pretty awesome. Looking forward to it myself. And maybe this is something to pay attention to, is how not many of these people are beaten down by the old structure police. And everyone knows you got to have a full backswing to hit it far. Sorry about the little, I just kind of clipped that thing and we lost his hands, but that's old John Rahm, and we know he crushes it, and that's the top of his backswing. And that's more like a 2/3 than a 3/4. JB Holmes is another one that comes to mind, about a full backswing. So again, I'm just trying to explore the maxims and the misconceptions, the myths. I think we all do that, you know, you try to point out. So you create a little book of things, of patterns that are different, so that whoever your student is who shows up and they just, like I did, I hated my left arm, and if I'd maybe seen that, oh, hey, by the way, young Bill, all these US Open champions have an arm that looks just like yours, that might have gotten me off that earlier, and it might have helped me play better for longer. I like this one. This is fun. You've also maybe seen this. Got to hold your finish to the count of 3. Watch this. That fellow almost made the British Open. I think he was he needed one more spot to get into the British Open, and maybe he'll get in next year. I forget his name, but he was a kind of a highlight. He was a highlight reel for a few weeks there, because he was coming on strong in those qualifying tournaments, which on the Asian Tour and the European Tour. And, you know, he was really full of mannerisms and expressions that we don't see very much. And he certainly never held his finish, and he was doing all kinds of crazy stuff, like bending down and blowing a little ant off the green and all this. It was really fun, and I thought that was just great, and I enjoyed watching that video. Once I got my arm straight, I started taking little bigger divots. That's not me, but I thought this was a cool picture. Got to hit down to make it go up. We know that's not necessarily true, and I hope no one's saying that anymore. You got to hit down to make it go up, as if the hitting down is what makes it go up. Presenting loft to the ball is what makes it go up, of course. And you can actually hit up on a ball and make it go up, of course. You know, take a pitching wedge, you can have a positive angle of attack, and it'll go very high in the sky. So that's probably too big a divot. If I did that over at Shady Canyon, that wouldn't go over so well. It's a kind of a funny picture I thought you might enjoy. Here's my young buddy, Bryson DeChambeau. Had the good fortune of spending some time around his camp and his team over the last 4 to 5 years, and watching his evolution. I have nothing to do with the way he hits a golf ball, you know, in his pattern and the giant grips or anything. His teacher is Mike Shy, and we had Mike present at one of the section fall summits, and he did a great job talking about how Bryson, he's the type of guy, he's got to invent everything himself. Mike can sort of nudge him in a direction and say, what do you think of this? And then Bryson feels good about having invented it himself. Anyway, this is a picture about releasing and rolling, and it's right for some people. And again, some people, even Bryson might be hitting a punch shot here of some sort. And that's just a pretty cool picture. I enjoyed. If you look really close in his hands, you can see the Jumbo Max, and he uses the extra large. And I used the smalls for a while, and they're almost like a Coke can. That what he has there, pretty cool. It's worth a try, by the way. And I sold a whole bunch of them for my members. And you know, they were very popular with the women I teach over at Shady Canyon. I have a women's group there with up to 20 women, and about 10 of them love those grips and put them on their clubs and tell me all the time that they're really happy with them, with bigger grips. I don't, you know, it's, as far as grips go, by the way, I have everyone explore for themselves what, you know, grip size. So they'll show up at a clinic, and I'll just kind of have 3 or 4 different size grips and put them in. And invariably, most people really do keep with the bigger grips. Not everyone, but seems like most new golfers especially connect to bigger grips. So all other sports, the grips are pretty big. How big is a tennis racket, a baseball bat, you know, anything like that? Almost nothing is as small as a golf club standard grip, which is more, of course, in the fingers. And I'm not saying you can't use it, but it's worth trying a bigger grip. Some people will do well. They call that a palm finger grip because it's sort of the back of the palms and then the fingers curl around, and they feel good. And I've got kind of puny wrists, and I was having wrist troubles for a while, and I put those on, and they brought my wrists back to life in my hands, and it sort of was rehabilitative. In the BMW Championship, which was one of the FedEx Cup that Bryson won, this fellow was coming down the stretch with him in the final group, and they both had these alignments, and which are pretty awesome. And he really wasn't hitting a punch shot here. This is just Abraham Answer's, I believe he's from Mexico, great young player. I think we'll see more of this guy. And you could see that wrist alignment, the bowed wrist alignment. He was just knocking down flags all week. That's pretty cool. And again, I'm not saying rolling your wrists is bad. There's a release. Usually releasing is happening after for most good players. And I know that, you know, let's use Mrs. Havikamp or Mr. Havikamp. They probably need a little more freedom in the wrist action at the bottom. Here's my old friend Doug Sanders. If you've been around golf, you might have been around here. You're blocking. That's a nod to Caddyshack, if you recall that line. And he didn't block. This fellow won. It was either 19 or 20 times on the tour. Was an incredibly straight hitter, and that was Doug's wrist alignments too. And again, don't think that that's the only thing I teach, but I certainly wouldn't teach that out of someone if they were knocking down flags with it and say you have to release. So those players have very quote unquote bowed releases. You can see his right wrist is very bent there, and usually very straight hitters, as far as I've seen. My experience is the people that do that hit it really straight. A lot of ways to do that. This isn't my best picture, but it was a picture of Ben Hogan coming into impact. You can see his left knee coming out of the screen there. That's bent still. You know, that snap the left leg, or posting up or whatever. Softening of the left knee. And whatever I'm showing here, again, I want you to just keep in mind, this isn't the only thing I teach. I don't pigeonhole myself. If someone has a straight knee, a young Tiger Woods, like golf swing, showed up and they jumped and snapped that leg and all that, I probably would explore. I would probably not bother trying to do this to them. In fact, everyone was thinking about, this is my opinion, and I've heard this from maybe some TPI guys, about Tiger Woods' left knee, the jump and the snap, and you know, he had all these surgeries, but it had nothing, the surgeries and the injuries had nothing to do with the swing. In fact, by jumping and straightening, he took almost all the pressure off that knee. And it was more the running and the Navy SEALs training where he actually admits that hurt his knee. So he got injured doing other stuff other than the snapping of the knee or the high velocity straightening of the left knee. Well, Ben Hogan here was a little less like that. And well, not too long after impact was that knee straight, and it was a post, but during the impact phase, he had a little more left knee cushion there. This is John Schlee, who was a teacher up at Industry Hills Golf Course, and he came in second in the 1973 U.S. Open when Johnny Miller shot a 63 at Oakmont, one of the greatest rounds in major championship history, to clip Mr. Schlee by one shot. He's one of few people who was a student of Ben Hogan. Gardner Dickinson, maybe Tommy Bolt, Chris Cheddar. There would be a handful of people only that Ben Hogan ever actually sat out there and sort of gave a regular golf lesson. And he told John Schley that if I could go back and do something different, I would start from an impact position, which we see the bottom picture is, let's call that impact. Hogan was showing him this. This was somewhat later in life, he said. And so John built his whole teaching philosophy around impact address or impact fix. And, you know, he could see his left knee was straight. And this was back in the 80s, and I was playing junior golf, and there were a handful of players that I was playing against that went to John Schley, and they were good ball strikers and really knocked irons down, and they looked like that. That was their address, and it looked a little weird, but boy, they were good. And it's a good exercise, and it might be something fun for you to try. But that's just a cool picture that I enjoyed. But again, he's not posting up until after. Didn't even show it on the screen there. So what then do we teach? Effective impact. This is a cute little girl that I've got. If you look closely, I've got some impact powder spray. I wear that stuff out. I teach them, you know, about the club face, the path, the angle of attack, the speed, the sweet spot. You know, I powder the faces of, you know, I just go through it. By the way, I go to the dollar store and buy them by the dozen, and I give it away to my students just to keep them thinking about hitting the sweet spot, especially with their driver. With irons, probably those little tapes work better because the powder goes away with the divot. So the tape works really well for that. Oh, this is cool. That fellow there had some of the worst throwaway. He was, you know, his hands were way behind the ball. So this is what I mean by implicit. I just created a little exercise with that 2x4 there and had him swing over it. And these were the stills I clipped from that. And that's him coming in. And that's him at impact. And it's pretty, those are pretty awesome, solid impact alignments. And I almost gave him no instruction other than to hit up here. And I showed him on video, and then, the instructions sort of came after, and he saw it in the pictures before where it was way behind. And then after that, he sure hit it nice. And that's, so this, by the way, the 2x4, it could be a stick. I use a broomstick, or actually it's what's it called, a golfer's toolbox, if you know what I'm talking about. It's a stick. And it might just be the little alignment stick you can see behind him there. Get people to do that. And you'd be surprised what that does, especially on video. That's a pretty good Ben Hogan impact. I know if you look closely, the club face is a little open, but we get to that. But that's something, a non-explicit instruction that just go over the stick. Of course, you can see some dings on the wood there. It wasn't the first time you ever tried it. I show this a lot. This is P5, just as a nomenclature of that phase of the swing, which I didn't like for a long time, but it's just shorthand. It's that phase of the swing where after the peak at the top, right here, this is where all the forces are summed. And I find that most good players look more similar here than at impact. You know that expression where people look, all the pros look the same at impact. And I don't think that at all. As we saw those bent left arms, and some people were more bent, and some people are more open, etc. But I don't say everyone looks the same here, but if you're pretty darn good, you look very similar here. I'm showing people this a lot, how to come into P5, this after the down at the top. That's a really important phase of the swing. And I have them moving around slowly there and getting comfortable with their head tilt, being able to look at the ball. That fellow's a really good player over at Shady Canyon. Now this is yours truly. I might be exaggerating a little bit, and I've used that on my coach's eye. And I'll just kind of show some lines and draw that, take a little screenshot, usually of them, and that's I'll send that to people a lot. That phase. That's something I find very useful. Again, just P5. This girl's a really good junior player, and she and her brother come down from LA to work with me. And first lesson, of course, my left arm's bent. I hate it. What'd you shoot last week? Oh, 68 in an AJGA, but my arm is bent. Oh, okay. And I tried to explain it to her, and I showed her all those pictures, and oh, okay, that's fine. She got past it. The dad was there and thought, oh, all this time we've been trying to fix that. Thought it was bad. Your daughter's like number 8 in the country. Let's not change that. Whiffy again. What's in it for you, kid, to have that bent left arm? These are the advantages of it. I explained to her. Kind of blasting through a little lightning tour here, just watching the time. Don't want to go too far over. This is my focus band. I use this when I teach a lot. A little strap that goes around your head. I was doing it the other night to get a screenshot, and fortunately I got caught myself when I was in the the right brain, which is the part that can handle 11 million, is it bits or bytes or whatever per second, while the left brain, the one that likes to dot the I's and cross the T's, can only handle 40 bits per second. I'm going with bits here. So, you know, you're trying to do this challenging endeavor of hitting a golf ball, and I think we'd want the processor that can handle 11 million over the 40 million. Quieting the mind, learning how to meditate. I always tried meditating, and this was me meditating, breathing. Okay, I think I'm meditating now. I'm not thinking of anything. That was what was going through my head. And then using a focus band, if you've ever had the good fortune to try this, it's sort of a Western way of watching your mind, and it's helped me a lot, helped me slow down, and actually have it. I work with my better players on course. We use the focus band to use their routine to get them in the right brain a little better, and to quiet their minds and to feel calm and a little slower. And whenever I give any kind of presentation, I'm always like, people will tell me, you should slow down a little bit. And my mind just works a little too fast. I probably live in the red brain a little bit too much. And below there I said positive thinking is just more thinking. I got that. That's a quote. That should be a quote with Sean Foley by it. You know, he talks about his teachers and the frame of mind at the National Teaching Summit. He was talking about this. He said, positive thinking is just more thinking. That he meant that like while over the ball. He's just trying to get his players as quiet as possible. Focus band's a great tool to help slow the mind down, quiet it, get out of the over perfection. Anytime someone hits a really super bad space ball, it's because usually they were in the left brain and overthinking it. And you know, we all know about that. They go, what did I do wrong there in my swing? They'll hit a whole bunch of great drives, and then the one goes wrong, and they go back to the drawing board with their swing. And I was guilty as charged. Now I blame my brain, my routine for not getting there. Get them on the course. Kids, really, I mean kids of all ages, especially thrive on the course more than the range. I'm really lucky. I teach out of 2 really nice country clubs where that's different. If you're at a super busy place, I get it. Or, you know, you work at a busy range, I get it. If you are in those places, create a little more virtual courses for them. And there's something called in vitro and in viro, and in virtual or in the environment. And we want to be as much in viro as much as you can. Once they know how to play and get past the phases, I again, especially over at Shady Canyon, it's not quite as busy as Marbella, and I'm taking my students out there on the course, doing that all the time. It's more fun for everybody. Again, just blasting through here. Doppler radar, that's of course, those are numbers from my TrackMan, just there, whatever. And it takes opinion out of swing style. And a lot of people look at this and go, oh my God, those numbers. And all that is, every one of those defines what the ball or the club is doing. It's just helping to understand it. So I highly recommend it. If you're a teacher that's, you know, totally opposed to tech, just spend a little time with it, because some people show up in your, you know, as a student, they like this stuff. You know, it can go to 1/10 of a degree. No camera can do that. And by the way, it plays. I play combines with my better player, and that is like little tournaments where you get a score, so you can really monitor. Like it puts virtual targets out there, and you can have people go through it, and you treat it, and it really feels like playing a tournament. I have a ton of fun with it. I also call it a feel machine. You know, so let's say you happen to hit one really well, or your student hits one really well. You look at the numbers. You could put a little star there as, you know, save this one. And that's one you can always refer to back. Again, with my better players, they'll go through it and just go, that was finally a perfect one. That's something we can always refer to and go back. It detects BS. And what I mean by that is some players show up and go, oh, I hit it around 300 yards, and you put them on there. No, it's 210 yards that you hit it. Let's be realistic about, helps people be realistic is what I should have written instead of BS. But anyway, it helps people be realistic about what their real numbers are and what they can do on the golf course. And if you're have my experience, most people are always sneaking up on the hole, and they never get past the hole, and they stand out in the fairway at 120 yards, and they try to pull out pitching wedge. I played a tournament at Shady, like sort of a pro scramble, and this woman who could only hit a driver maybe, you know, 100 yards with some roll. I was hitting a pitching wedge from 120, and she pulled out pitching wedge from 120. I'm thinking, you know, I kind of said, she goes, no, I hit pitching wedge 120. I thought, okay, good luck with that. You're right around Tiger Woods' distance. I know he can hit it farther. She goes, yep, I'm right around Tiger Woods with my pitching wedge. I thought, that's really funny. You're a 70-ish-year-old woman, and not that women hit it any shorter, but they usually do. And this woman could only hit that thing maybe 50 or 60 yards. Here's a little video of a girl that I'm teaching. She happens to be the #1, not in the in whatever the Players Series in SoCal at the moment. And let's watch this. We're working at the head release there because she was really a person. If you saw that coming through the ball, she was tilted way to the right. She had a really shallow angle of attack, and so she hit fat and thin shots for the same reason, which is usually the case. And we helped her feel more on top of it, more covering it, head releasing, and it was still plenty down and back and all that. And she started playing really great lately, and that's something she said it helped her. Being creative with camera angles, this is kind of cool. I'll do a back view. This guy made my presentation because just a couple years ago, 110 was the best he'd ever shot, and now he's shooting mid-70s very frequently. And very, very cool guy. I told him I'd put him in there on my presentation because of that. And that's just one of the angles I use too. I'll sometimes get on a chair and look down over people, various angles. Just mix it up with your angles. Again, my favorite, not my favorite, but a really important one is this drill here where you put the stick somewhere. There's the golfer's toolbox and the direction you see there. And this is such a powerful exercise I found. Let's see, is this a video? Yeah, this is a video. Again, looks pretty good, right? The good alignments, impact look good. That's another fellow that's made a great improvement in his game. Just getting through this here. And teach them why they need you. I know some really good teachers who sort of think that if you're just a good teacher, you're going to be packed full, and that's not necessarily the case. When you sell or use promotion materials, you're also teaching. Use social media for good, not evil. By that, I mean avoid getting into saying risque stuff or political stuff on any of the forums, any of the Twitter and all that. Highly recommend just keeping it about golf and your, whatever. Get your students to say okay if you can put their video up there. Don't ever put people up without their knowledge. Might get just something they don't always get. Make great articles. Write articles. Make great flyers. I should have said. Be a port instead of a stable. By that, I got that from Pia and Lynn, and they said, look, a lot of people see themselves as a stable. You're stable of players. And I encourage my players, I don't say go everywhere, but I do say, hey, did you ever have a chance to see Pro X over down the road? And no, you're my only pro. And I think, well, you might have something to learn from that pro. And I want you to think of me as a place you always stop in. If you get something, run in. You're a port. That they gotta, they're out there on the high seas hitting all the shots, and they just gotta pull in for something. Know your values and principles. Again, the principles are, what do you think makes, all of your collection of ideas. The values are the guiding practices that get you. The principles, the guiding practices of your values, I should say. And that's just something to keep thinking about. And it's always with WIFI in mind. What's in it for you? Like, I don't make flyers and go, oh, I got this award and I got that award and I played golf at UC Santa Barbara and I got a hole-in-one. I don't do that. I always show this is what's in it for you. Get more power, consistency, and control. And consistency is what everyone wants, isn't it? So that's what's in it for people. Power, people like power. Oh, there's a handsome devil. Look at that guy. I was at the Microsoft store and they had augmented reality. And I know that this is the future, and there's virtual reality where you're actually in a game, but I thought for a while virtual reality was going to be the next big thing, but it's augmented reality. Some of you, there's something called putt view where, there's a trail of the putt that goes down at real time in a room, and that's just kind of cool. I know that somewhere along the line, maybe someone that's listening to this, you're going to invent some great app, and we'll be able to watch ourselves like as a hologram, as if you were there. And you might be able to do overlapping holograms. That might be the future of teaching, maybe not, but I think that was pretty cool. Again, what kind of teachers are we anyway? Are we high tech? Are we old school? Are we a keep it simple and swing your swing? You teach juniors, good players, beginners. Are you on course? Are you a prestige teacher? Are you a maverick? Are you a mechanics teacher, power, short game, mental? And this was all, again, self-searching. I think I'm sort of all of those things, and maybe you are too. So my answer is really be all of those things, and explore them, and maybe don't get pigeonholed. That's sort of my point in this. With great power comes great responsibility. Consider being an ambassador. This is something consider being an ambassador for your favorite good cause or charity. We know golf, the PGA Tour, they have a ton of they give a ton to charity. I like care.org. I usually don't say anything about this, but in any case, that's where I've connected. That's a charity that I try to be an ambassador for, and I figure I'm going to get a little bit free promotion this coming year, and I want to help them get some free promotion too by having that on my bag and my shirt. It's against world hunger, and clean water, and etc. And so that's just something I'm doing, and consider it. Just wanted to put it up there. Keep perspective. There's my little car. It's just sort of fun, a little orange box. Share joy, inspire people, keep laughing. You got to laugh at yourself. How can you not laugh if you have a car like that? Attitude of gratitude. Boy, I just wake up every day happy to be waking up and having another day. Teach people respect. The young people. Not all the game is so beautiful at this. Courage, fun, etc. These are just some of them. This has been back to mindset, the perspective, the attitude. I try to live in those zones there. And hey, doesn't always work, but as much as I can, try to kick myself back into the lines there of that business. Keep an open mind and teach lots of love, by the way. And the reason why I use that frame with my son, my little 2-year-old, because I'm 52 years old now, and the first 48 years of my life, I said, no way, no how would I ever want to have a kid. That never, ever, and marriage, no way. And then all this happened, my great wife and my son, and boy, has that changed my life for the better a million times by opening my mind to that. You never know, how something's going to change you. And that little fellow right there certainly has. And if anyone's ever been to some of the teaching summits over the last few years, I joked about, oh, then this segment I'll just be showing baby pictures. And there's my first baby picture of Callan. And little Callan Flynn McKinney, hopefully he'll be a PGA member someday too. And we'll be watching him in the Ryder Cup or something, but it's okay if he doesn't. Anyway, what I got here, lastly, great teachers keep learning. Also consider getting together with Art Maffei, the SCPGA Golf Science Advisor. You can contact me for details. We have these little get-togethers about once a month, and mostly around LA and Orange County. But Art is such a tremendous asset, and he'll travel and get a few players together. And maybe you've seen him present, or maybe you've been part of it. But he's a wealth of knowledge that brings you a little more up to speed on some of the science in a very simple way. Highly recommend it. If it's not too late already, sign up for the Teaching Summit at the Grand Del Mar, hosted by the Golf Professional of the Year, Sean Cox, who also did a great presentation that I hope this is a portion as good as. But that's going to be tremendous. There's the National Summit every 2 years, and our West Coast Summit is this, and it's just the Fall Summit again, but I know that it's just huge. And last year, Jamie Mulligan hosted, and it was tremendous. It matches what the National Summit does. And not only are there great presenters, but priceless networking with your peers. So that's partly too, why did I end up in my role in the PGA was because I would go to all these events and kept going to education. The education was good, but heck, it's who you meet at lunch and who you meet after and go have a dinner or a beer with after. And you make these tremendous friends or of like mind, and that's underrated as far as what you can do at all these events. So if you're always thinking, oh, what am I going to learn? These events are they're also tremendous networking with really great friends. And I hope I consider all of you my friends, and I'm so stoked to be a 25-year member of the PGA, and I hope I get another 25-year in. Thank you very much. That is my contact information, my cell phone. You can text me, you can call me. That's my email, billmckinneycare@gmail.com. And I had fun doing this with everyone. And I imagine, John, if you're still there, if some questions came in, I don't know, but I'd be happy to do my best at answering them.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Bill. Very much grateful for your time and efforts in putting together this morning's presentation. We do have some questions that have come in. This one from Bob Madsen. Juniors are not good these days at taking care of the course. I do not blame the kids anymore. I blame the teachers. Can you share your thoughts, Bill?
Wow. Well, that goes back to some of the values and the principles we teach, and it's a good comment. And I think, you know, get down with the kids and show them how to do a little gardening and explore. That's such a good opportunity to teach the value of you know, being part of something bigger and being part of, you know, you're sharing this environment with people and leaving the place you are better than you found it. So here's how to fix 2 pitch marks. Here's a divot. Hey, here's a divot that no one put sand in. It's a good point. That's such a tremendous value. And, you know, and for us teachers, you're right. It's such a great chance to share that. So good point, Bob. Anything else?
Yes. Also from Mr. Madsen, he loved what you said about the instruction came after. Could you elaborate a little bit on that for us, please?
Well, I didn't say bend your knee here and tilt your shoulders there. And, you know, again, P5, I showed that picture. That picture of my students hitting over the stick, I just created a goal, an objective for them that, you know, I showed them, and then I said, do this, hit over the stick, don't hit the stick, and hit a divot up here. And next thing you know, I mean, I videoed it, even the first try, and it's amazing. On the very first try, that drill makes everyone look really good. Now, there's not a ball there with that, and I get it, but it can really change someone, and it carries over pretty darn well with the ball, because I spend a lot of time doing that. And that's maybe inspired a little bit with the Bobby Clampett forward swing bottom dynamic of the 5 dynamics of the impact zone, which I do impact zone golf schools. So anyway, I always try to use as little explicit instruction as possible and try to keep it to where the communication is, I don't say minimal, but I try to dance around it so they're figuring it out themselves, demonstrate it, etc. So good point again, Bob.
And finally, speaking of using social media, notice that the PGA Instagram page is filled with tour player stuff and this week's Ryder Cup.
Yeah. Is that a comment?
Yeah, it's just a comment actually. Hold on, this one from Bill Holbert. Sorry, the questions come in a very small window. Okay. If the downswing is 0.25 seconds or less, and it takes 3 seconds for a muscle to respond to a command from the brain, 0.3 seconds for a muscle to respond from a command from the brain, where, in your opinion, can we rely on influencing the downswing and therefore impact?
Oh, that's a great point. My understanding of the brain to the impulse is about 0.2. If I'm not mistaken, it's around there, so it's a split second. And that's, again, why I have people posing that. And so they're familiar with it, because it's such an important phase, as in, back to my P5 positioning there, 3, 4, 5 is really, as in arm parallel going back, top, and then arm parallel coming down. And that's a great point from Bill, and he always is a guiding post for all of us and keeps us honest. And so very little, so meaning you should have teach people a great setup and the backswing and how to transition. By the time mostly we've deployed the transition, there's not much else we can do consciously. But I gotta admit, maybe someone else here will think of this too. If you're in because I've always thought, maybe it's in my imagination, that I could influence more through the bottom. I felt as though I still had to stay with a shot, but maybe that's just after the fact. But let's go back to Bill's point. So as a teacher, it's really important to get people to. So that's how important the transition is. And when I went down to Chula Vista with the biomechanics guy down there, not Rob, Phil Cheatham, and they have all this data on the tour pros. They said by far the biggest difference between the tour player and regular golfers is what happens in transition. So I think the intention is big. And so you're already clearing up people's intentions. Hey, here's what you're trying to do, as in go over the stick, have a forward swing bottom. But what, again, transitions where the magic is, in that 3, 4, 5. So great setup, teach them, backswing, and teach them about the downswing. Again, I have people, when they're posing that P5, that ready to go pounce on the ball, which you have only about 1/10 of a second left to hit the ball. Just get them familiar with that, so that I think eventually it sticks and they do better. And it depends at what level they are naturally. So that's a great question, great point, and encourage everyone to explore that and try out getting people to get through that 3, 4, and 5 phase really well. That's my answer. Stick to it.
Okay, I believe that is all the questions that we have. Thank you for the questions from Mr. Holbert and Mr. Matson. We appreciate that. And again, Mr. McKinney, thank you very much for your time and your effort in putting together this presentation. Again, congratulations on your award, the 2018 Southern California Section Teacher of the Year. Congratulations on being recognized by your peers for such great accolade. Want to also remind everybody that our next Catalyst presentation is in 2 weeks, same day. Very excited to make the announcement that Mr. Mike Davis of the USGA will be presenting on the Catalyst in 2 weeks. So a very big name, should be a huge turnout, very well attended by the section. Also, in terms of Mr. McKinney's presentation this morning, we will be sending out a 10-question quiz. And also the YouTube link to this morning's recording. Please take the quiz and return it to Sharon Kerfman at skerfman@pgahq.com. A score of 70% or higher will earn 1 MSR credit for attending this morning's Catalyst. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, everyone.